Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome back to Tekpon. Today our guest is Emeric, the founder and CEO at Agorapulse. Hello.
Hello, Christian. Good to see you.
It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. But at first, please tell us what is Agorapulse.
Agorapulse is a social media management software. So it's basically a piece of software that you can use on your browser because it's software as a service that helps you manage your social media profile. So if you are a business and you have a Facebook page or several Facebook pages and Instagram accounts and YouTube channel and LinkedIn and TikTok and Pinterest and soon WhatsApp and so on and so forth, and X or Twitter.
Yeah.
And you can post on all of these social profiles from one location. You can have a content calendar that's showing you when you're going to post what on what profile at what time, and you can anticipate specific events in the month that you want to be ready for having the right piece of content or event for your company or event for your country or event for whatever. And you can also collaborate in having people propose a draft and other people approve the draft or give feedback on the draft or enhance the draft. If you're an agency, you can do that with your customer and be much more collaborative. But that's all. And there's plenty of features on that. I'm not going to get into the weed of that because it's quite comprehensive.
Yes.
For the publishing side of things. Then you have the monitoring, engagement monitoring. So it's everybody who's going to put a comment on your content, is going to give you a review on Google My Business, for example, or soon others, because we're looking at other review sites to incorporate into the tool, because review sites are social media in a way. It's people expressing themselves easily and freely on the web, like they could do because of the Web 2 revolution we had 10 years ago. And private message on Twitter, private message on TikTok, on Instagram, private message on Facebook, private message on LinkedIn now, because you have private message on LinkedIn as well. So it's all the interactions and communication that are happening between you and your audience around your social profiles themselves and the content you post there. And then you have the listening side, which is basically you listening on keywords and hashtags and mentions and who's talking about my brand or my competition, in what terms, and so on and so forth. So that's the listening part, not to confuse with the monitoring, engagement monitoring part, which I described a minute ago. And then you have everything about reporting. So what's working, what piece of content is getting the most reach, the most impressions, sending the most traffic to my website, which conversation when I intend this conversation to be driving traffic to my website. So let's take an example. You are a wedding planner and you have a Twitter search that says a wedding planner. So every time someone on Twitter in your area is mentioning, I'm looking for a wedding planner, does everybody know a wedding planner?
Wow.
You're going to get an alert and you're going to be able to say, hey, happy to help. Here's my website. Wow. You're going to be able to track the clicks on that website. If people ask for a meeting or ask for to be called back or whatever it is. So you can basically start tracking what actions, whether they are through my post, my content, or they are through a listening strategy or tactic, or they are through engaging with my audience, is driving traffic conversion and revenue. And obviously, are you growing your audience? Are you getting more impressions? So it's all the reporting. Again, trying to summarize super fast, but everything about, is this working or not? So just to give you context, the vision for the product and for the company is to help people measure and see the business impact of what they're doing on social media. Long story short, that's what we're trying to achieve and solve in the world. Yeah.
Thank you so much for explaining. I appreciate it. Out of all these features that you mentioned, what would you say are the most loved, top 3, let's say?
The most loved?
Yes, by your customers. The most used?
I think what they love the most is that it makes their life easier. It saves them a ton of time, and they don't have FOMO anymore. Fear of missing out. Fear, oh my God, did I see everything? Did I respond to everything? So there's definitely a fear there, and we're helping them get rid of that because we're organizing everything and telling them this is what's left. This is what you missed. This is what your team has missed. This is what your team has done. So there's a lot of release of pressure for the marketers and the social media professionals who are working on making sure that everything on social media on their companies or their clients' side is kept clean and they stay on top of it. There's definitely a sense of being better organized with the content publishing when you work especially when you work as a team, or you work with customers, or you work with an approval process. It is structured and it's organized, and you don't have to worry about, again, things slipping through the cracks or anything. And on the reporting side, I know that we have customers who told us that before us, they were spending like 4 or 5 hours a week on creating the reports based on going on each social network, gathering all the data in CSVs and all this kind of stuff. And now they do that in a matter of minutes, basically, and they create the reports that they need to see. They get them automatically generated at a given day of the week.
Yes,
they get them sent via email automatically to you, your customer, your boss, whatever. So basically, now the reporting that used to take them 4 or 5 hours is a matter of minutes, and it's done for you every weekend. So I think what they like the most is like, we have to do that stuff. It's very time consuming, and it's not a great use of our expensive time, because we are human beings doing stuff manually for us, and we're paid as Western people, human beings, whether it's Europe or North America. We are more expensive than in some countries in Asia or Africa. So if you do that work and you're 30 hours an hour or $40 an hour or 50 or whatever is your price per hour, and not 3, 4, 5, it's not a best use of your time to do copy pasting of data from Facebook to a spreadsheet and then do, what I mean? So that you want to be focusing on the strategy and the content creation and why and how, and aligning this with where the company wants to go. And so we're basically removing all that stuff, which is low end value that a piece of software should be doing, basically, and allowing them to go their value up in the scale of the to-do list that they have, and just be able to focus more time on the stuff where they bring the most value, and focus less time and save time on the stuff where they don't bring the most value.
That's amazing. I love it. How about the customers? Usually, who is your client? Let's say mostly agencies.
Yeah, agencies are 30% of our customer base, so it's a pretty large ideal customer profile, ICP as we call them. And for the rest, it's a large variety. But if I had to identify the best customer for us, it's usually companies that have an offline presence with multiple locations. So that's going to be retail or hotels or campgrounds or that kind of business, because they usually have one social profile per location on each network, on Facebook, on Instagram, whatever else network they have, and Google My Business for reviews, that kind of stuff. So that means that they have a lot of volume, they have a lot of presence, which is a headache to manage, and a piece of software in that sense is really solving a big problem for you. It's solving a much bigger problem than if you have one Facebook, one Instagram, one LinkedIn, which is a smaller problem for you to solve. So that's also ideal. We have a bunch of governments and public institution.
Wow.
It's quite a big segment for us, which is interesting. I think governments in general have a duty to their people, to the people that they are administering, and they are expected to respond to their questions, and they are expected to provide them with the information that they need. So I think there's it's as a private business, I don't have to let the world know about what I'm doing. And if I don't respond to you, you're going to say, F you, I'm going to buy from someone else. But as a government, there's no someone else you can buy from, right? You're not going to fire your prime minister because you're just going to hit them and not vote for them. So I think there's a lot more demand on the need of communication from public entities. So that's probably why. And that's pretty much it in terms of the ideals. But then we have e-commerce customers as well, nonprofit. It's all over the place. There's not really a vertical, which is interesting in our industry. There are not a lot of companies like us who have chosen a vertical and say we are social media management for X being e-commerce, retail, or anything. There is one company that's specifically focusing on B2B. That's an interesting one, but it's only one out of dozens and dozens.
Wow.
And then there is a segment that's very focused on local marketing, I think you can call it this way. So they go especially after retail and brick and mortar businesses, but they do a lot more than social. They do review management, they do local advertising, they do managing the the Yelp and the Google My Business and all the different profiles where you have, opening hours and directions and addresses. So it's kind of related industry or a related type of service, but a little bit different as well. So that's what our industry is made of, and those are the customer we serve.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate the transparency. How about the pricing? How does it work? And do you have a free trial for somebody that's just with one account?
We have a free trial for you can try for 2 weeks, and then you can renew for 2 weeks. So overall, you can try for a month, and which I think is a better option, because if you start a free trial and then something happens, you don't have time, but you're not stuck within the next 30 days, and then you can't try anymore. You have a second chance. I would say it this way.
Nice.
And then we even have a free product. So if you don't feel you're ready and you just want to look around, see what it is, you can just do the freemium. You don't even have to start a trial. And then the entry level price, if you subscribe on an annual basis, is $49 a month for one user, up to, I forgot the number of social profiles, if it's 5 or 10, whatever it is. And then it is $79, and then it's $119 per user. And at the $119 per user on an annual basis, it's going to be $149 if you pay on a monthly basis. You basically have everything in the feature set. It's really the top of the top, so it's very affordable, if I put it this way, for something that's really. And it should be more expensive if you ask me, for a product that is really offering everything in the kitchen sink at that price. Obviously, if you need 2 users, then you're going to pay $300. If you need 3, $450. So depending on your team size, it's going to be more expensive. And then we have a price for more larger customers, where you're going to have features like SSO or customer success that's provided, and training and all that stuff. And that's it. That pricing depends on how many users you have, how many profiles, and we do custom pricing. Custom pricing usually ranging anywhere between $500 and $3,000 a month, or $4,000 a month sometimes, for very, very large customers with a lot of users and a lot of very big social presence.
Okay, and I'd love to know how competitive is your space, the social media management space.
It's very competitive, but frankly, in 2024, show me a space that is not competitive. I don't know any. And every time there is someone who is emerging, and they're kind of the best, and they're kind of alone on their space, and they can, 3-4 years down the road, there are a dozen of competitors that are popping up left and right.
Yes.
Interestingly enough, every time I as a buyer, I see something I'm buying, like, for example, I love kite surfing. You probably saw that about me in my LinkedIn profile.
Yes.
I've been learning wing foiling, which is, kind of an evolution of kite surfing and windsurfing. You're on a foil board. You hold the kite with your hands instead of having it at the end of long lines. So I'm learning that, and I'm going to sail in the Caribbean, lucky me, in February. So and it's going to be 2 weeks. I want to perfect my wing foiling practice and expertise. So I'm trying to buy a wing foil. And for the whole, you asked me how was the holiday season. I basically spent 15 hours on my phone during the 3-day weekend we had twice, looking at wing foiling equipment. I discovered wing foiling brands I didn't have a clue existed, like 5 of them. And I'm like, it's a tiny micro market that, I don't know, maybe the biggest of those companies is having 20 employees or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was looking at that, and I was looking at this, I don't know, we're probably looking at 20 brands for a super tiny niche market. And I was feeling my market is not competitive at all compared to their market. And the total addressable market in terms of value is like, it's 10% of mine, or maybe less. So long story short, because I was amused by that when I was checking that for my own needs and say, oh my God, this is so freaking competitive. Then I felt, mine is competitive, but frankly, it's okay.
That's a great answer. But what do you think will help you make the decision on which one to choose?
Me on those?
Yes,
and that's the problem. When there's so much competition, you're looking for reviews and you're looking at price, and that's pretty much it. So it is something that we are definitely paying a lot of attention on the market, making sure that we have good reviews. We make sure your customers are uber happy about you, and they tell the world. That's number one. And number two is, have the right price positioning based on who you're going after and who your competitors are going after. So don't be the cheap. If you're the cheapest, you're going to be perceived as the cheapest. So the cheap options, we rarely compete with them on the higher end of the market. We compete with the bigger brands, but with the bigger brands, the ones that have raised a ton of money, like the Sprout and the Hootsuite. Our advantage is that we have not raised a ton of money. We are not at $250 or $300 million ARR, annual recurring revenue. So we have more margin for being closer to our customer, to our prospect needs in terms of budget. So we have people who say, well, I can spend $800 a month on a social media management software, but I cannot spend $3,000. And that's what they're asking me for. So you can adapt, you can be better, you can be a better fit for a specific segment in the market. Where while they're going after enterprise companies, like much larger companies, you can go after the middle of the market, like smaller companies, who are going to have needs and who are going to be ready to pay for those needs, but not like I would not pay $3,000 a month for a social media management software myself, and we're making $21 million a year. So we're not super small, but we're not super big either. And in my mind, I know how much I would pay for a CRM. I know how much I pay for a CRM, for email marketing, for all these things. And I know that I have a price in my head every time I look at a product,
of course,
based on the value I'm getting for it. And if you are in the 20 million revenue range, the price in your head is absolutely not the same than if you are in the 200 million range or the 2 billion range. Like if you're talking to a company that's making 2 billion a year and you're telling them my product is 5K a month, they're going to say, ha, 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 ha. That's it. Nothing else. If you're talking to a company that's making $1 million a year and you tell them my product is 5K a month, they're going to say, what? Are you crazy? So it really depends on who you're going after and how you're going after them. So pricing is very important, and you have to be very strategic about deciding on your pricing. That's for sure. And so customer review, pricing, and finally, feature coverage. Like for example, when you're going after larger businesses, which we started to do 2 years ago, they're going to need features that the low end of the market does not offer. For example, SSO, single sign-on. You have to offer single sign-on. You have to offer more advanced reporting options. You have to offer an API. You have to offer a certain number of things. And building those features and offering them to the segment you are going after is going to make them choose you and not someone else who doesn't have them. So it's kind of in that quadrant of my price, my feature coverage, and what the good things people say about me. That's going to be how you differentiate in the segment you're going after. So it's a long answer because it's not an easy answer.
Yeah, I appreciate
Then obviously also what you want to have is you want to have unique, you want to have stuff that's unique to you. And for us, the unique thing, I actually filed a patent in the US, is that we have a reporting product that reports on social media return on investments, like how much money are you making from social media? I mean, actual revenue, not guessed or estimated, like the actual revenue you converted from social media.
Wow.
And web conversions, online events, subscriptions or registrations or free trials, number of trials we got from social media, and so on and so forth. So that is something that we built 2 years ago, and is totally aligned with the vision I mentioned to you earlier, proving the business impact of social media to the people who are working on social media for their companies or their customers. And that's unique to us. No other tool does that. And if they start using it, I'm going to sue them in the US for patent infringement. So
of course,
let's have fun. I'm an ex-lawyer, so I'd love to do that and get back to my roots.
Wow. We'll talk about that later in the podcast, but now I want to hear the company story. So basically how you started it.
Oh, that's a long story. I'm going to try to make it super short.
Yes.
And as you can see now, I could be very chatty. So the company started in 2000 with my co-founder, Ben, who's been our CTO for 23 years.
2000?
Yeah. In July of 2000, we started Affinities. That was the first business. And Affinities never really worked. So we closed shop of Affinities in 2012 or 2013. 2012, maybe. I'm not 100% sure. And we started Agorapulse on the dead body of Affinities, basically. Affinities MR funded the beginning of Agorapulse at the end of 2011. So we launched Agorapulse at the end of 2011.
Okay.
And we eventually broke even in 2015. So it took us almost 4 years to break even. We broke even at 100K MR at 10 employees, I think we were at the time, and 10 or 12. And since then, we've been growing from 100K, and we're now 1.7 something million MR. And it's now a success, to a certain level of success. You're always more successful than some people, and not as successful as some other people. So you're always older than many people and younger than many people, right? It's like you're always somewhere. You're never the last one or the first one. So we have some level of success at 21 million AR for sure, and we've 175 employees. But
the company is older than me because I was born in 2002. So
you're right. The company is 23 years old. It was registered in July of 2020. Yeah. Absolutely. And Ben and I, we met in New York in 1993. So that was a long, long time ago. That's how the story got started. We failed during all these years with Affinities, our first business between 2000 and 2011. It was in 2011, we were making 140,000 of annual revenue, 140,000 euros of annual revenue. Today, Agorapulse makes 140,000 of revenue in 1 day and a half. It used to take a year for us to make that kind of money. So definitely we failed, and it was hard for a very long time. It was a struggle for a very long time. Ben and I, we paid ourselves minimum wage for like a decade almost. We had to do other side gigs and other jobs and freelance jobs to be able to live and keep a roof on our heads. Now we're in a good place, but it's 23 years later. So it's an overnight success that took 20 years in the making.
Yes. Yeah, right. I love that mindset, and people need to see the reality, not just the numbers. And it took you 23 years. Amazing. How big is the overall team right now?
175.
How many?
175.
Wow, that's a lot. And how do you describe the culture?
Well, first of all, the culture, when you're small, when you're 10, 12, 15, the culture happens. The culture is there. The culture is basically your behaviors as a founder, especially when you're a very, very small team. The behaviors of the founder are the culture, because what they do, what they say, what they show themselves is gonna build a culture. So in the early days, the culture is your behavior and who you are. It's your personality, most of it. So for example, in our culture today, in your values today, we have two things. One is freaking care, and the other is just own it, like own your stuff, right? Own your shit, if I can pardon my...
It's okay.
That is totally who I am. I own my stuff. When I make a mistake, I say, whoops, my mistake. That's me. I'm sorry, I messed up. This is what I'm planning to do to fix it.
Honestly.
And when I take something on, I take it from start to finish. Nobody has to come in and clean behind me, because it's going to be done and well done at the end. Yes. So this ownership thing is really a value I have that is now a company value, but it's very, very something I brought to the culture, and Ben as well. And the caring is the same thing. I'm someone who cares. I care about the people who work for us. I care about our customers and our prospects. I care about people having a great experience working for us, using our product, interacting with us for any reason whatsoever. Applying for a job, like anything. I care that we do the right thing for them, and obviously we also do the right thing for the company. And sometimes there's conflict there, but that's your job as a leader, to address that conflict. So those values that we eventually started to put on paper in 2016, they were the extrapolation of the culture that was already in place. It was already existing. So what I usually say to founders, I tell them, try to identify as early as possible what is that makes your team your team. Like, what are the characteristics and the criteria that they would use to describe themselves? So an exercise you can do, we've changed our values 3 times. One time in 2016, once in 2019, and once in July of 2023, very recently. And we've done it different ways every single time. But one way that's very cheap and anybody can do is like send a Google form to your team and ask them to give you 10 keywords of what characterizes them as their professional values. And they're going to give you keywords like, ethics and honesty, whatever it is. And then group them in themes and say, oh, here are the themes that we saw in your professional values. Does that fit? Does that ring a bell? And that's how we decided on our second set of values, and eventually tell them, okay, based on all the keywords that you shared, these are the main keywords that we identified that are common to all of us. Does that sound like good company values for you? And then here you are. You've just built company values in 2 hours, or in 3 45-minute segments, and that's not hard. It doesn't take a lot of time, and it has the big advantage of formalizing something that's informal in the early days, but suddenly you can call and look at and think about and discuss and say, are we aligned with this value when we decide this or that, and so on and so forth. So I think it's really important to try to formalize them in some way, because they're always non-formal in the early days.
Thank you for this insight. I think it will be really helpful for founders. From my research, I know that you basically are a bootstrap company, but raised a bit in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm curious to know, why didn't you raise more and go for growth and follow that path?
We never raised money for the company.
Okay. So
we raised secondary money in 2016, in 2019. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Secondary money, meaning that new investors came in and replaced the business angels that invested in the first business, in Affinities, in 2001 and in 2009. So investors came in and replaced them. That was one thing. And my co-founder and I, we got a little money from, we took a little bit of money from on the table. The main reason is because in 2019, it had been 19 years since we started building businesses. And Ben and I, we had nothing in our name. We didn't have a car. We didn't have a house. I had nothing. I had basically 15K on my bank account, period. That's all I had.
Wow.
So when you've been busting your ass to build a business and investing everything you have and giving up on your personal life and your friends and your vacation and everything else, and giving up on a lawyer's job, which I used to have, that was paying me very, very, very well. And if I had stayed a lawyer, I would be millionaire today, probably, because top M&A lawyers in American law firm, they make a lot of money. Giving up on all that and having nothing to show for it at 45 years old, that was quite challenging for us. Wow. And we were getting to a point where we thought, hey, maybe we should sell, so we secure the stuff we've built. And we had offered to buy the company at a pretty good valuation.
I can imagine.
Already between 40 and 50 million at the time.
Yeah.
And when you get there, you have this fear of losing it all. And we decided that we had to secure some money so we could accept to keep going and keep taking risks. So that's what this was. It's giving us the energy and putting the fear away so we could keep taking risk and moving on and taking the company to 50 million, 100 million without being blocked by that inner fear. Oh my God, what if I make the wrong decision and it all goes to bust? I'm going to lose everything. Let's not make this risky decision, and so on.
Yes. Okay, It makes total sense. I really appreciate the honesty. This is really helpful. And are you still thinking of selling it, or is it a vision just to grow it and keep it?
The business always ends up being sold, whether to the market through an IPO, or whether through an acquirer, or whether through your employees, you do an MBO, or, in 2024, there are very, very few businesses that you build to give it to your kids, right? Like it's those exist. I'm not saying they don't exist, but they're rare. And I think in tech, it's kind of silly to build a tech business. Say, this is for my kids. Your kids? the tech your kids are going to live with does not even exist yet. How can you do that? Well, of course, if you have an agricultural empire,
exactly,
or even a clothing, a fashion empire, maybe a fashion empire or luxury empire like Louis Vuitton, maybe that you can build and give to your kids, because there is a certain amount of sustainability behind that business, not going to go away overnight. But in tech, please, tech businesses today, if they keep doing what they do in 50 years, they're all dead, right? So it makes little sense. So this business will probably, if it sticks around, it will probably be doing something completely different in 20 years, like it is doing today, something completely different than 10 years ago. And because of that, I think, you always have to be open to whatever is the best for transforming that business to what it should become, to go to the next step, especially in tech.
You're amazing. This is amazing. I love it. Can you please tell us how you started your career? Basically, you mentioned that you're a lawyer, but please tell us how you started after college, let's say, or high school.
Yeah, very similar. I was in a boarding school in France. It's the same boarding school our president went to. Macron went to that boarding school a couple of years after me because he's younger than me. And then I studied after I went up to the end of high school, and at the end of high school, I had no clue whatsoever what to do with my life. I went to see a psychologist, and I passed it. I had a test, and the test, it was an IQ test or something like that, and apparently I had a good IQ. I'm not going to brag about the number. I forgot what it was, but it was good. And she said, "Oh, you're very smart. You should do this and that school because, super high-end school. Like it was called Sciences Po in French." Mm-hmm. And I said, "Well, fine. I heard about it. It sounds cool. I looks cool. What do I need to do to get there?" I said, "Well, you either go to university or you go to a specific prep class where you're going to go to like lots of work." And say, "Okay, lots of work. Why not?" So I went to prep class. It's called Hippocagne. And I went to a university. I said, "What university?" "Well, either history or law." "Well, history, no fucking way, because if I fail, I'm going to be a history teacher. I'm not going to be a history teacher. That was not in my DNA. I didn't feel like one. Lawyer. My grandfather was a lawyer. My great grandfather was a lawyer. I said, "Yeah, okay, fine. That sounds like a good enough job." I had no idea what it was.
Backup, yeah.
So that's how I decided to go to law school, to register for law school and preparatory class. Eventually, in the summertime, I was a Boy Scout at the time, and my chief, who is someone I love very much, told me, "Oh, don't go there. Don't go to prep class. Too much work. Go to university." I said, "Oh yeah, you're right. I want to have a life." I went to university. That's how I ended up in law school. I had a vision for my life. No, absolutely not. I just didn't know what I was doing, and I just followed the advice of people around me.
Of course.
And eventually, law school went well for me. I got great grades, and I went through the 7 years of studies with no problem. Always in the top 10% of my class. So apparently, it was made for me, or I was made for it. I don't know. And I passed the bar. I got the Paris bar, and I started my career in Washington D.C. in an American law firm. Then went back to Paris, and 4 years later, I was starting my first business, and that's it. The rest is history.
What made the change from having a secure job as a lawyer, making very good money, to risking it all and working 20 years?
Some people some people are not entrepreneurs in their DNA, but because of life, they become one, and they discover they actually can become one, but they didn't have that in their DNA. And some people have that in their DNA. I'm the second part. I'm among the ones who had that in their DNA. I've always had a wish for leadership. I always wanted to lead and take a team and, "Hey guys, let's do this. It's amazing, and let's build this together." When I told you about, I was a Boy Scout, then I became a Boy Scout chief. So I was leading a team of 30 young kids. We were sailing at the time, and let's go sail over there, and let's have 2 weeks in the south of France on the Riviera. I'll drive all the boats down there. I always had to put together crazy projects and challenges, and so it's whatever I was doing, it had to be a challenge, and it had to be a project that was exciting me, and I had to bring people in with me to carry on that crazy project. So I think that was totally was in my DNA, and you can do that as a lawyer. You can start your own law firm, but when I started to balance the pros and cons of starting your own law firm or starting a product company, I thought that starting a product company the pros outweigh the pros of the law firm, because you have, in both cases, you have the issues of being an employer, you have the issues of finding new customer, you have the issues of chasing revenue and making sure they pay you. So you basically have all the issues of being a business owner, but you don't have the upside of building a business that does not rely on you, or building a business that you actually can sell because it has intrinsic value, where a law firm does not have a lot of intrinsic value. So when you took all the pros and cons, it felt like it was better for the long term to build a product business than a service business. What I didn't realize is, like, building a service business can work pretty fast, and the product business can take a decade to work. And that one I didn't know when I started. So,
but it's more scalable.
Yeah, if you had told me day one it's going to take you 10 years, I wouldn't have done it. I would have thought, "Oh my God, no, I'm not investing 10 years of my life with no results. That feels too hard. I'm gonna stay a lawyer." That's what I would have said. So thankfully, I didn't know.
But do you think for entrepreneurs it's important to know that they have to make these sacrifices, or they can find a compromise in the middle, also have some friends and a successful business? Or how do you see it? Is it a must to make these sacrifices?
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, it's unfortunately
you can have both worlds.
No, you cannot. You cannot have a great family life, lots of time with your friends, lots of vacation and time off and free time, and succeed in business. I don't believe it's possible. You may bump into someone who tells you that it worked for them, but they just were lucky. Most of the people I know, they did a lot of sacrifices, at least for a while. So for me, that was too long. The sacrifice time has been too long. I mean, the sacrifice without the success was too long for me. Now I have some level of success. There's still a lot of sacrifice, less than before. But because I had the success and now I'm paid really well, and now I have a big upside if I win, I'm okay with the sacrifice, because I'm like, I see the result. I see the prize,
eyes on the prize.
It's okay. It's okay to work 15 hours a day and on weekends, because I see why I'm doing it. But when you do it for 10 years and there's nothing coming back at you, which is the majority of entrepreneurs, let's face it, the majority of entrepreneurs are super hardworking and they don't see a lot of success. That's the majority. And that means that you have to be ready for that. And see, that's okay. And you have to be happy with what you're going to learn doing this, with that being the only expectation, not the money, not the financial success, not the fame, not anything else. Because if that is what you're going after and it's taking you 10 years, you're going to kill yourself of being depressed very quickly.
Yes. Yeah, that's super valuable. I have one last question for you. What's your favorite SaaS product that you use, but apart from Agorapulse?
What my favorite SaaS products? So I have obviously a ton of SaaS products.
Let's say top 3 or the most favorite.
Let's go top 3. So I like Loom very much. I use a lot of Looms recording videos. I hate their pricing. I think their pricing sucks. Having a pricing that's per user and without any kind of discount, whether you have 10 users or 170 users, makes it completely stupid, because we started to use it, and then all the people in my team in my company started to use it as well. And then one day I saw the invoice. I said, what the fuck? It's way too much money. So we had to go back and kill all the paid accounts. It's stupid. They should have pricing that goes down as you add more people, and so it's more reasonable. But I like the product. And if someone listens to me and want to do a Loom that's priced intelligently or better, please do it, because there is a market there. Their pricing is stupid.
You'll be the first customer.
Their product is great, so that's the problem.
Yeah.
And on the product I like as well, we recently subscribed to a product called Captain Data, and Captain Data is an automation software that allows you to do a lot of list building, list enrichment with amazing potential and capabilities. I was blown away but basically before them, I was doing all the list building and everything enrichment with VAs in the Philippines and in India. Who are amazing and work for us full time, but it was manual work and it was taking them weeks to get the data enriched and qualified. With Captain Data, it's basically taking hours or days. So that's really cool. And the founding team behind, I know the founding team. They're a cool bunch of people.
Yes.
Yeah. And obviously we use we spend $100K a month, more than $100K a month on SaaS, and we use dozens and dozens of them. But those are the one. Captain Data is the latest one I discovered. I was a bit blown away by. So that it's this one I'm mentioning today, and Loom is the one. As a person, I'm using the most on a day-to-day basis. Yeah,
it's perfect. Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to mention today on the podcast?
Anything else I want to mention on the podcast? So if you are a business owner and you're trying to grow and you're trying to up your game as an operator in your business, you should listen to Leila Hormozi. She has a podcast. She's the wife of Alex Hormozi, who has 2 books and a podcast. So I was lucky enough to meet them in a coaching program in the US 3 years ago. They're amazing. She's amazing, especially her, because I feel more aligned with her, because Alex is like the creative genius. I'm not a creative genius. She's the operator. I feel more like an operator as well.
Okay.
But her podcast is really cool, and her her YouTube videos are really good, and she's inspired me a lot on a lot of things. And the crazy thing is she's 30 something, and I'm 50 something. I'm 20 years older, and she's the one inspiring me. So if you're looking for interesting stuff, listen to her on her podcast and try to find her on YouTube and watch a couple of videos. Then the algorithm will serve more of them. And those are the two things I would share.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I enjoyed the conversation. It was amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, Christian.